everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Your Friend in Furnishing. I'm Marc, your host. Today we spoke to Dawn Asher, and it was a really fun, interesting episode. She's an experiential marketer, and so her perspective reflects that through a lot of the way she approaches this industry. We talked a lot about the importance of bringing your own personality into the rental. Don't be afraid of doing that, even if you're not managing it. Another property manager is, or a co-host is. We talked about building nice experiences at the property. So lots of useful nuggets in this episode, and hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was really excited when I saw that you guys launched a podcast. I was like, it's time. So this is great. Thank you.
So we'll start with our rapid fire warm up. I'm just going to give you a few questions right away. And we're going to start with, what do you think one product category that hosts underinvest in might be?
Okay, well, I'm already going to say up front, I think that some of my answers here might be a little unconventional, and they're not like completely what you might think of as design centric when it comes to furnishing and styling. So one product I think that hosts underinvest in is actually displays and messaging. However, that can come through, details in the home that you are going to use as a part of the styling of your home. But displays and messaging, when I say that, what I'm talking about is anything from welcome signage to, that's framed in a beautiful, like, decorative frame, to, a coffee bar menu that's on display. Could also be book titles, right? Because book titles are already tell a story, right? And you're already communicating so much through the collection, because you're showing your intentionality by the details that you have curated. So what I would say is that it's elevated cues that are both subtle and direct story messaging.
I really like that answer. And we don't even sell those. I've experienced that. Sometimes I show up at a property and I'm like, maybe there's a welcome book, it's really thick, maybe there's nothing. You're not there to guide the experience, and so you can do a lot of communication with really thoughtfully placed signage displays, and tastefully. Like, I think that there's a good balance there. You don't want it to feel overwhelming, but just these nice little tasteful messages. So, all right, next one is, what's something hosts consistently overspend on?
I'd actually say cheap lawn entertainment. And the reason why there's overspending that happens there is there's so much, I'd say cheap entertainment in general, about like the flimsy foosball table you can basically lift with a pinky. It just feels so impermanent in the space. And so one, it's communicating your lack of, intentionality and lack of care. But what's happening is those pieces are usually breaking down so fast you're replacing them. So it's costing you, right? Yeah. And then what you're also doing is it's costing you, guest satisfaction, and it's costing you the trust that your guest really is longing to put in you for the space that you've designed for them.
What about one design trend that you're really loving?
I think it's anything that lends to like a nature immersive experience. So amenities that really allow you to get in touch with your surroundings. And I mean, that can also happen indoors, with live plants and, hanging plants and all that. I know there can be debates about live plants in an STR, but when we're thinking about the outdoors, it's kind of like what the domes, really did for this whole up-leveled side of amenities. I think I also think about, more simplified builds, like a floating, 4-post day bed, things like that.
Last thing in the rapid fires before we go into some of the larger questions, what about one forever buy?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, there's sort of two parts to this, I think, for me. It's a book, and I think that it's because, one, it's great to have in your property if it ties with the story, but also it's just a way to actually like spark joy and help, like, if any guests actually are going to sit down and read something, it's a memoir, and it's called Joyful: The Surprising Power of Ordinary Things to Create Extraordinary Happiness. And this designer wrote this book to essentially break down these different pillars he calls the aesthetics of joy. And it's all around you. And she just kind of breaks down, like, why does a floating object, why do balloons and clouds and anything that is literally like elevated actually spark joy. And so she gets into the psychology of it, but it's so that like you just learn how to like see so much around you that sparks that joy. And so one, I just think that's like a forever buy, because it's a great educational tool for hosts to understand experience, and experience not just design, but experiential design. And then the other thing I would say is forever buy is, I would kind of say this is also like always spending your money on this. Quality cutting boards and charcuterie boards. Replace them as they get worn down. There's nothing more gross than arriving to a place with a cutting board where you can see like, okay, this has, this is a year's worth of guest cutting steak on this. I'm like, no thanks. Great. I mean, it's different than having like a seasoned cast iron. Right. That's different. I'm talking about like what's been left behind, right? And I mean, just a good charcuterie board. It's in our bones, like every charcuterie's got to have a bowl of olives on it. It's made for sharing. And I think like, that's what we as hosts need to be investing in, is like, what is the shareable experience that will truly connect your guests? Because it's that connection that creates the memories,
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the connection between design and marketing and how you think about those two things together. We see a very interesting, our industry gets people from all different places. You get people who are attracted to it because of they're much more financially oriented, and so they come at it more from like a finance background or lens, and it's an investment, which is I think true for a lot of people. But then we talk to a lot of people who actually come into hosting from a marketing background. They've had marketing jobs, and they're just drawn towards the storytelling and the creation. And then you have all sorts of people in between. But we found like the people who think about marketing, their properties tend to do better, and they have higher ratings. And so I'd love to just hear how you think about what you work with obviously a lot of clients on, and sort of the advice you give them and how to think about marketing and design maybe separately together.
Yeah. Well, I think that really you can't begin without knowing where you're coming from, right? What is your origin story? We've talked about this, in our industry. I just think like, especially as entrepreneurs, we talk about our why all the time, right? But I think for a brand, when you're talking about your brand, that why isn't just posted, and framed in your space. It comes through in all of the collective details. And so how to even begin with marketing, it really begins the moment you have articulated the story you want to tell. At the end of the day, marketing is truly about creating a connection with the person who's sitting across from you. So I think that if we just like sort of peel back the layers of what marketing is, it's connective storytelling and what you're doing to truly like touch the human inner soul of every traveler that you're hosting.
I'm going to connect this back to what you said earlier about like bring your personality into it. Just because, okay, you're using a co-host or a property management group, that's totally fine. It's a lot of work. Running the property is more work than people think. I think it's smart. If you're up for it, do it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. And if you don't have the time, hire somebody. But that doesn't mean it needs to become this cookie cutter, soulless investment property. Like bring your personality into it. It's a creative, this is like, for a lot of, this is like what you look forward to. It's a way to be really creative, especially for people who have a creative bend. They are marketers, they're in creative industries, but maybe they don't feel like they have the full versatility to express themselves creatively.
Totally. And what details do you need to tell that story, right? So for us, it was like, okay, we are bringing in all the tools they would need to bake a cake, right? So we brought in and we implemented, some more chef's kitchen tools, like a great standing mixer, KitchenAid standing mixer. We have, we have a spice rack, but that's like tucked in a cabinet. The spice rack we have on display is actually a collection of sprinkles. And so it's a variety of sprinkles, which automatically registers celebration, right? The other thing, those are just like two small details. It's our record collection, the music choice that we have there for them that shapes this story. A lot of even just the communication of what we're sharing with them. We're like, hey, by the way, make sure that you're looking through every cabinet. There's a little bin that's there for you just in case you want to celebrate even the small things. And when they get into that bin, it's garland and twinkle lights and all, little bud vases for them to make it their own. What we haven't yet talked about here is that experiential marketing is actually the act and the practice of putting the experience in the hands of your consumer to create and to co-create the brand with you.
How do you think about, you have this focus on creating really memorable experiences for the guests while they're at the property. Then when you're trying to get them to book the property, you don't have that ability. You have to do it through copy. You've already talked about copy, imagery. So what are some strategies, or how have you guys thought about, you deliver that really strong experience at the property, but trying to give them a little taste of what it will be like just from the listing?
Right. I think that's like, how do we make this translate in digital format?
Yeah.
It's a true craft. And the number one thing I would say is light. I mean, when you are looking and you're scrolling through photos, you could shoot the same space twice. You could shoot it with harsh light. You can shoot it in shadows that don't really have a lot of, mood, or you can shoot it with a lot of natural light, where also your light actually becomes a character in the story. It actually points to the focal point of that frame, within that frame, right? So composition is really, really important. I'm a creative director, and as you mentioned, I was a production designer for a long time, so I knew how to style for camera, styling small moments. I do think light is just, it's so powerful. And I think that you can still have a beautiful space with even flat, even light. You can do that where it feels really creamy, but what you want to be able to do is draw people in. And light has that kind of effect. It just has that power. When you work with a creative director, actually being there on site, building a shot list, working with the right photographer for the space that you have, and making sure you're not just capturing stills, but you're capturing motion, right? Styling moments where there's evidence of human interaction here. And I'm not talking about models. So I would, I could talk about this till we're blue in the face, but what you want to be able to do is to say to your guests, to this viewer, that they can see a piece of themselves here. It's just enough inspiration. It's not giving the whole story away. You don't want to spoil everything, right? But just a taste that allows them to imagine themselves in the space. But even if you're going to be drinking coffee in the morning, what's going to be more memorable? A coffee mug from anywhere, or a coffee mug that is that was locally made, and actually has a story behind that too. Because again, it puts the traveler into place. It's all context, it's all point of reference.
Totally. We that's why in our showroom we let you tag local products and bring them to the forefront, because it connects you to the place. It makes it feel unique. It gives you this sense of intimate knowledge. This idea of, if you can create those moments and do it tastefully and create memories that matter, you're going to be successful.
Which also is why I think, the shoppable experience, the moment I heard what you guys were doing from the very beginning with that, I was just like, that's experiential marketing. You're putting the guests in touch with, bringing a piece of that stay home with them. Now, how hosts actually engage their guests to make that piece meaningful, that's the secret sauce. Right? And that's why it's so cool that you guys are connecting people to the local,
Yeah, that's what we're trying to keep getting better at, and keep creating new tools that allow hosts to do that.
Let's talk more.
Well, Dawn, it was great. It was great to have you on the podcast. There's tons of very useful nuggets for listeners in this one. So thanks for taking the time, and
for sure.
Yeah, we'll chat with you again soon.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And please, anyone can please reach out to me. I put a lot of these nuggets out in our newsletter as well, but even have a quiz. I have a hosting quiz that kind of puts you in touch with a lot of these principles, where you can kind of see as a host, okay, here's where I'm performing in this sort of experiential marketing strategy versus this one. And where are my strengths, so that hosts can kind of identify, okay, where they can kind of grab onto, but also where are their holes, where are the gaps in that too. So
perfect. We'll include a link to that quiz. I think it's on your site. I've seen it. So we'll include a link to that when we
That's awesome.
publish the episode.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mark. It was so great to connect with you.